Hey everybody, welcome to Tara T. I'm your host Tara, and today we are going to be discussing Host, the July 2020 Shudder exclusive. This movie had to be my first choice to cover on the podcast because of how unique it is. For those of you that don't know, Host is set during the COVID-19 pandemic. It was filmed over Zoom during quarantine and came about all because Rob Savage, the director, pranked his friends on Zoom and it went viral. He eventually pitched his idea for a feature film to Shudder, and within 12 weeks it was released. I guess when you're trapped in your home during a pandemic, you don't have much else to do. I will warn you, we're going to go into full spoiler territory here. So if you've not seen Host and you don't want to be spoiled, stop right now, go log into Shudder, which is like the horror platform, and watch this movie. The movie begins with Haley getting ready for her weekly Zoom call with her friends. This week they're trying something a little different and are having a seance with a medium. While Haley is getting ready, we start right off the bat with the uneasy feelings. There's a quick jump scare with things falling out of the closet, and the next thing you know, we hear banging on the window. Gemma is next to show up as she is stuck in the Zoom waiting room and is throwing rocks at Haley's window to get her attention so she can get added to the Zoom meeting. There seems to be some tension between the girls as there's a mix-up between having the Zoom meeting on her phone and computer while Haley is just trying to get her to fix it, and she's just like, oh, listen, all this loud noise. Eventually, the rest of the girls come. We have Emma, who is one of the more nervous ones of the bunch. Radina and her boyfriend Alan, who from the looks of their muted fighting, have moved in together very quickly due to COVID. We have Caroline and her adorable dad Pat, who has apparently been a naughty boy going outside during COVID. And last to show up is Teddy, who is staying with his girlfriend Jenny and her parents. Jenny, we will soon learn, is not a fan of this group of girls, and they feel the same about her. Everyone is getting along and showing how friendly they are with each other. The girls are all showing their little Zoom tricks that they've learned. You have Emma, who is setting up a facial filter, and you have Caroline, who has set up a green screen of her walking back and forth so it looks like she's there moving around when she really isn't. Then our medium Celine is waiting. Haley reminds her friends that Celine is her friend and to take this seriously. It's pretty obvious that these friends can be a bit goofy at times and not necessarily take things seriously when they decide to play a drinking game. And every time Celine says astral plane, they're all going to secretly take a drink. Everyone lights their candles and has their special items. We don't really get to see a lot of the special items. We really only get to see Teddy's, which is a musical box that he broke quarantine to go get. They have a few secret drinks due to astral plane, and then suddenly Jenny is blowing out Teddy's candle and turning off his Zoom call, effectively removing him from their weekly group meeting. Yeah, Jenny sucks, and I absolutely love it when Gemma calls her a knob sack. They go on without him, and Celine is trying to guide them into a true contact by asking the spirit to knock. So you're all tuned in, listening for that knock, and then there's suddenly a loud bang. Turns out, Celine ordered delivery, which is so 2020. This whole scene was hilarious. It scared me half to death, but it was one of those scenes that's like, this was so stupid, why am I even scared? While Celine is getting her food, Gemma is poking fun at the whole situation. They start back up again, and Haley has a reaction like something is touching her, but she is quickly overshadowed by Gemma yelling. Gemma starts crying and saying that the pressure on her neck is so much, and she tells them about a school friend who killed himself named Jack. Celine is coaxing Gemma to say more. When we see her on the screen, it looks like someone is trying to grab her or something falls on her. She leaves the meeting, and Gemma reveals it was all a joke and that she made everything up. Everyone is laughing and acting like it's not a big deal, except for Haley. She's very upset and tries to get a hold of Celine again. Gemma starts poking at her and saying that she senses a strong energy and there's tension, and all the girls just start going back and forth and bickering. Suddenly, Haley gets pulled across the room and everyone stops. She insists that there's something there and they have to keep going. She hears something in the back of her apartment, so she grabs her Polaroid camera that she took a picture of everyone during the Zoom meeting, which, of course, my first thought is when you take a picture and the flash goes off, it's going to blind the camera, you're not going to see anything, but I digress. She takes this camera, goes down the hallway, and is trying to take photos to see what's back there. All the girls start experiencing different things. Caroline hears things in her attic, and she takes her phone and puts it on a selfie stick in her attic, and she's moving it around. I will say, one thing I don't like about this style is when they're picking up their entire laptop and moving it around and showing you things, because it seems unnatural and forced due to the way they've got it set up. With this, I like that they were using Zoom on their phones, and so you had someone like Caroline who was able to put it on a selfie stick, and it made more sense that she's carrying it around with her because it's a small phone. So she's got the selfie stick as she's going around her attic, and at first we don't see anything, but then we see a pair of legs, and when we try to go back, they disappear. Haley's taking photos, telling everyone that she thinks there's something in the hallway, and then suddenly a glass breaks, and I believe it's Emma's wine glass that breaks. And so Haley now is trying to call Saline and let her know what's going on, and they have to tell her that it's all fake. And she tells them that they've basically welcomed a spirit into the circle, and it's using the mask of Jack to get in. They ask her how to get rid of it. She tries to help them close the circle and end the seance. The call drops when they try to ask if it's a friend. And you've had lights flickering and lights going off. Obviously, it's not a friend. Haley talks to them and says, I've done these before. I can end this. And she goes through the whole thing of trying to end it, cutting the circle, what have you. The girls think they're in the clear. They're all laughing. And, oh, my God, we got so sweaty and all this, thinking that it's all over. Of course, it's not over. We still have a ways to go, and everyone's still alive. At this point, Redina cannot find her boyfriend, Alan. She's asking the girls if they saw him leave, which of course they didn't. She tries to call him, and Gemma and Emma and Caroline are all trying to head out. Caroline's background is still going. It's her walking back and forth across her room, when suddenly we see her face slam against the monitor. Everyone's kind of looking like, what's going on? And then Emma has a Zoom filter that shows a face in the middle of her living room. She goes towards it, and it just completely disappears, scaring her. So she goes over to her kitchen, and she grabs powder, and she's sprinkling it on the floor when all of her cabinets fly open. And then you start seeing on the ground the footprints coming towards her. Everyone's telling her to run, and suddenly Emma is picked up off the ground and then dropped. Redina is standing in her kitchen, still trying to find Alan. She ends up finding his cell phone. She looks over at the kitchen, and she sees that her stove is smoking, and she goes to turn it off. The girls are all scared, so they're hollering at her, trying to, yell her name, get her attention. She comes over to the computer, she's like, what? And at that moment, Alan falls from the ceiling onto the floor, dead. Something grabs Redina and drags her body across the ground, and then she dies. And then suddenly Caroline appears back on the screen with her face slamming against the keyboard over and over again. And then she dies. Haley decides at this point she wants to call Saylin to figure out what to do when Gemma starts screaming at her that this is all her fault and that she doesn't need to call Saylin. Well, then Haley starts yelling at Gemma that it's all her fault because she lied, when suddenly Haley is dragged back across the floor and then pulled onto the ground and into a back bedroom. Gemma decides to put on her mask to leave to go to Haley. And this is when I'm just like, what is going on? Because earlier she did not have a mask on when she was going to Haley's house. And now suddenly in the midst of, you got a demon, you got stuff moving, people dying. Let's put on a mask. Like, all 4 masks, the whole shebang. But if it's like demonic possession or take 2 seconds to put on this mask, I am getting the heck out of Dodge. Like, I don't care if I just have on like PJs at this point. I'm leaving my house. I'm getting out of that craziness. Which I will say, Gemma doesn't seem to experience anything in her home. So she might have been safe in her house, whereas everybody else wasn't. Anyway, so we're left with just Emma under the blanket, bawling, when all of a sudden Teddy's screen comes back on, and it's this marionette clown puppet thing that he had shown earlier from Jenny's parents' house walking across the screen. He thinks they're all pranking him, so he's like, stop it, knock it off, calls them some names, messing with them. When Emma's like, no, you have to go. His lights go out, and she's, saying, get out, get out, get out. Well, suddenly we get an alarm on the screen that's a Zoom notification saying you've got 10 minutes left. So Teddy is going to go down into the basement to try to find the fuse box. Well, when he does, stuff starts moving around, and then suddenly you turn. I guess he falls or something, and you turn, and there's this little, it's a man painted blue almost, like it's like blue, like splotchy, and he looks in the camera and screams, scaring Teddy. It's honestly the moment in the movie that it just kind of took me out of it, because it's like this whole time, it's a demon, it's whatever, and then it's just this blue person, like blue man group, but with hair. It was just like the one true blemish on this movie. But anyway, so Teddy runs outside, sees Jenny. Something then picks Jenny up above the pool, like a few feet above the pool, breaks her neck, and then drops her into the water. Then Teddy has like his flashlight and he's taken off, and he hears the music box from earlier. And when he goes to like see where it's at and he's asking Emma, like, do you hear this? The light on his flashlight explodes. So then he gets a lighter and he's walking up to the box, but then something grabs him, drags him along the ground, and he's knocked out. Well, they take that lighter that he had and they set him on fire. So he burns to death while Emma is hollering for him to wake up, and Teddy dies. So Emma has now decided to leave from under her blanket to try to get out of the house. So she goes to leave and feels like there's something in front of her. So she throws her blanket on it, and it is this figure, really tall, standing in front of her. So she turns to leave and is trying to go out the window, and she ends up falling, or maybe she was pushed, you can't see it at this point, but she falls on the picnic table and dies. So then we hear thumping and then glass breaking, and it's Gemma breaking into Haley's apartment. And she looks at the cameras, and she's looking at the Zoom meeting, and she sees that everyone's dead. They all start leaving the chat one by one until we're left with just Haley's scream. A bottle comes flying out of the kitchen and hits Gemma in the head. Gemma falls to the ground. And a little bit later, there's like a micro jump scare of an arm like hitting the camera, the computer, and it falls over. And it's Gemma, and she's like bloodied, and she's like, oh no, and all this mess. Well, then they do the kitchen grab again, where all the cabinets open, and it scares Gemma. Scared me half to death. And so she's trying to get to Haley. Now, I was under the impression at this point, because they'd earlier mentioned possession, I was like, you know what? It's going to happen where Haley's going to come out, she's going to be possessed by this demon, and she's going to kill Gemma, because they've had their tension. Was not the case. So Haley is actually hiding under a desk in the room. Gemma goes in there, opens the door, you see a chair move out, and Haley just crawl out from under this desk. And she's fine. They bump elbows, happy to see each other. And I don't know about you guys, but if me and my friends were trying to survive a demon, I think we deserve a hug. Like, COVID or no COVID, I'm getting a hug because we survived. So Haley grabs her Polaroid camera, and she's trying to take pictures down the hallway to see, like, if there's anything there, can they make it past it, what have you. And she's going into this room taking the photos because she thinks it's further into the room. Well, when she gets closer to the wall, she takes one last photo, and all of a sudden it's a screaming jump scare, and it's the little blue man guy again. I don't know how I feel about this ending. My preferred ending would have been that it stopped at the photo. Like, it's the snap of the Polaroid, and then the Zoom meeting ended. Instead, you had a screaming jump scare, and then the Zoom meeting ended. I just wish it would have been more of an abrupt ending like Blair Witch. I will say right off the bat that I am a big fan of this style of filmmaking. This falls into the found footage subgenre, but then is a special secondary subgenre of being viewed from the perspective of a computer. 2014's Unfriended was the first that I'd ever seen like this, and I really enjoyed it, as well as the 2018 sequel, Unfriended Dark Web. And while not a true horror movie, it's more of a thriller. Honorable mention 100% goes out to 2018's Searching for taking this whole thing of using a computer, and that's how you see the whole movie, and just running with it. Searching also has a little bit of a monster movie kind of hidden in it if you look hard enough. And now for our closing segment in Terror Tea. This is going to be called High Tea and Low Tea. High tea is going to be our energy giving, and our low tea is going to be our light snack moment meant to tide you over. In Terror Tea, the high tea moment is the part in the film that is super action packed, adds a bit of a scare, or could just even be my scariest moment of the whole movie. The low T is going to be the part that just kind of like a precursor to the actual action, or even like a low point in the movie. So for host, my low T moment should come at no surprise and be the Blue Man Group guy, specifically during Teddy's death scene. I just did not care for that. I wish we had never really seen anything. I much preferred this be more of a Paranormal Activity where we don't see it versus a Cloverfield where we do see it. My high T moment is going to be Caroline's death, where her background's going and you think everything's okay, and then suddenly her face comes into screen and is just smashing the keyboard over and over again. It was a fantastic use of Zoom's existing features, something that we're all familiar with if we've been doing any work from home during all this madness, and it was just a nice final touch. And for the last sip, my final thoughts. All in all, I really liked this movie. I have recommended it to many friends and family, and I certainly recommend it to anyone who's a fan of found footage. It's a nice little time capsule for what's going on in the world during 2020, and I am a bit of a special features nerd, so I would love seeing the behind-the-scenes footage. The director, Rob Savage, even had to direct his actors over Zoom, meaning everyone was responsible for their own lighting, sound, and even practical and special effects. This is the one movie I would love to see how they did it all. Maybe we'll get something special from Shudder. Anyway, check out Host and let me know your thoughts. You can find me on Twitter at terror_T and over at Instagram at terror.t. Leave me a 5-star review if you dig what you hear and subscribe to the podcast. I'm your host, Tara, and this has been Terror T.